Hello everyone, I'm State Representative Rob Swearingen. We are here today in the beautiful chambers of the Wisconsin State Assembly here in Madison, and with me I have three freshman Republican Assembly people, and I want to introduce Representative Mike Rohrkast from Neenah, Representative Nancy Vandermeer from TOA, and Representative John Mocco from the Green Bay Ledgeview area.
That's right.
Welcome, thank you very much for taking time today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So the purpose of this, we want to talk about your first year here in the Wisconsin State Assembly, and so I want to take the clock back, turn it back 1 year, and ask you, and I'll start with you, Mike. I want to ask you how it's been the first year. Is it what you expected?
It's been an incredible experience. I mean, we've been able to work on some significant issues, whether it was the budget, whether it's a task force that I'm heading up on Alzheimer's and dementia, and really everything that we've been doing is designed to make Wisconsin a better state for all the residents and make our communities even stronger.
Great, great. So Nancy, same question. How was your first year?
Well, I think it's been excellent. And I'd like to echo much of Representative Rohrkast's ideas, but I'd like to add one other thing. The knowledge that I have gained about my constituents and the diversity in the colleagues that I serve with has lent itself greatly to my base of knowledge and the ability to serve and represent those in my district even better. So yes, it's been a great opportunity, and I think this is an experience of a freshman that we will only continue to build on.
All right,
And I would agree too, Rob, with Mike and Nancy that you know, the depth of knowledge that I've been able to accomplish to gain in the last years is much greater than I expected. We've just been very, very productive this year, and just the friendships and the depth of knowledge, the iron sharpening iron, has been really helpful to me.
Okay, so if we kind of take a different twist on the same question, is there something that you know now, sitting here, that you wish you would have known a year ago, Mike?
I think probably one of the biggest surprises to me was all the tremendous resources there are, whether it's from the Fiscal Bureau or the Legislative Reference Bureau, and then just working with other legislators and offices. I thought it might be more, you don't have as much resources as what we did, or people might not be as willing to help. And I was so pleasantly surprised with that. Everybody's really willing to help out, whether it's in those nonpartisan reference bureaus or people within the assembly or in the offices. The staffers are all just great people to work with.
I would agree, coming from a sophomore legislator, my first term as well, the leadership team here in the Assembly Republicans will not let you fail.
Correct.
And the resources that you mentioned are huge, and then you add that with the staff of leadership and really any other office, it's a win-win. Nancy?
The one thing that I wish I had a better understanding of going into as a legislator, and I think this is a good thing. It's something that, as I explain it, we could only gain by our experience, and that is the legislative process. You know, first gathering together the constituents, getting their ideas, the stakeholders who will be affected by the legislation, and then getting our fellow legislators on board as co-sponsors, and then the committee process finally ending up on the assembly floor for passage. And that, it's very important. Each bill stands on its own, of course, and each bill respectively takes its own type of time in that whole process, depending on the technicalities or the scope of the legislation proposed. So that's one of the things that I think it's something we learn by experience. And that was one of the things that I was surprised at, but I have to say the support that we have and the learning curve that we are able to accomplish is amazing here.
And all that I would add to that is to take off of what both my colleagues said. The way I would use that is I would say it's the power to convene. And the depth of institutional knowledge, like Mike said, at all of these different bureaus is nothing short of fascinating. And so the one piece of advice, and I think the reason that we had a fairly fast start, is because we took time to get into those organizations and find out what they're good at, what their core competencies are, and who those go-to people are. So that power to convene shouldn't be shouldn't be taken lightly. To be able to pull all of these folks together into a room and move our agenda forward is really, really quite an exciting thing. But that's the one thing that I think maybe some freshmen might not do enough, is they don't take the time to do some due diligence and sit down with some of these different different groups, different divisions, and find out who they are, what they do, and how we can utilize them, because they're there to help us.
Right, I would agree. So, you know, the laws that we're making affect people not only in just our districts, but across the state of Wisconsin. And so sometimes the subject, and pick the subject, whatever the subject may be, you may not be fully aware of the background of the history. So you have to do your due diligence and get both sides of the argument and come to the best decision for the taxpayers.
Sure.
So the purpose of this video is to educate or enlighten somebody who might be coming in a year from now. So we're sitting here in November, December of 2015 with an election cycle coming up. Would you have any advice rather for a freshman legislator coming in the next session? Mike?
Two things maybe. First is don't underestimate the importance of your vote and what you can bring to the table, even though that you are a new person or a freshman into the legislature. Every vote is important. Every person that's in the assembly is extremely important. If you look at, just go back into the history of the budget, every vote to pass that budget was important. And your part in that, whether you're a freshman or you've been around here for a long time, is equally as important. So that would be one really positive thing. I would say the other is to ensure that you really continue to reach out to your constituents. You did that in the election cycle, but continue to do that. And there's different ways, and you should check with offices and maybe some of the ones that have been around for a while as to what works best, but find out what's the best way for you to stay in touch with your constituents. I think that'd be the other piece of information, because that'll keep you really grounded to your district.
Nancy, any advice for a future colleague?
Yes, I would. I believe it. Let's take a look at what's going to be the foundation of each of our respective administrations, as I call it. But I believe the foundation is relationships. And that's going to be, just like you had alluded to a moment ago, that relationship with your constituents. Continue to work even harder on that than you did during the campaign, because you need their ideas, you need their support. That's the fundamentals of what we are representing, are those constituents. And then the second point is those relationships with your colleagues, our legislators, just like you had spoken about, you know, the value of the vote, the value of being able to negotiate, to be able to communicate well, and keep those lines of communications open. I think the bottom line in this and all those relationships is respect and the willingness to listen and incorporate new ideas. And I equate it like this: it's a very delicate balance, but that, I believe, is a focus and fundamental of what we need to begin with as freshmen.
I would agree with that wholeheartedly. That you will have friends here in the State Assembly for a lifetime. And even though you may or may not have agreed on every issue that has come across both of your desks, respect is huge, as well as the bonding with the constituents. Some people that you may or may not have met along the trail, but some, I call them frequent flyer callers to my office, that you really can pick up the phone and get an opinion. Yep. John, how about you?
I think there's three things. It is research and focus, and then specialization. And so I think the three of us for sure did a lot of research. We did that due diligence. I think in the medical profession they say that prescription without diagnosis, or diagnosis without prescription without diagnosis is malpractice. And so you want to sit down and do that due diligence and do the diagnosis and do all of the research, because you come in here with your hair on fire and thinking you're going to change the world, and you need to just maybe make sure that you take some time. So I think doing all that due diligence and doing that research and spending time, and it does take time, it is a lot. There's a big learning curve. You get thrown at the end of the pool. And then focus. I think sometimes I think some of the mistakes that some of the freshmen make is that they start to expound on areas outside of their own district. I've made it a conscientious effort to concentrate on the 88th district. My social media, my posts, my communication, all is about that particular area. It doesn't mean I don't have an opinion on statewide things or national politics, but I try to stay focused on the job that they hired me to do. And then the last thing is a specialization. So all of us will get moved into different areas. But so in my case, it's I like finance and those types of numbers, so I try to migrate to those types of things, and then I try to find other people with certain specialty skills, Mike's skills and Nancy's skills and your skills, Rob, and then rely on you for that, because you can't be a master of everything. So to focus on one thing and be the go-to person on that, I think, is the best piece of advice I was given.
Yeah, good stuff, good stuff. So as we wrap up here, another quick question. So each of you have been here the year so far, and I know all three of your offices have worked diligently on bills that you have a passion for. And Mike, I know you're the chairman of the Speaker's Task Force on Alzheimer and dementia, and maybe that'll be your signature legislation as we move forward. But is there something you want to hang your hat on thus far in office?
That would really be it to date. I mean, there's been a number of things that I've worked on before that, but we're going to be bringing some bills forward, and they're going to be extremely important for the residents of Wisconsin, for individuals that are suffering from some form of dementia. And I hope that we will be able to, and I'm confident that we'll be able to make a difference. And that's really what it's going to be about, is making a difference for the constituents, not just our districts, but the entire state. And Alzheimer's is personal to me. My mom went through that, and I know many other people that have also suffered from that. So if we can make their lives better, that's a win for everybody.
Yeah, I agree. I was fortunate enough to be the chairman of the Speaker's Task Force on Rural Schools last session. Something that really, you didn't come down here specifically for the school issues. It's certainly a big part of all of our districts, but that was kind of my focus at the end of the first session.
That's great. Yeah.
Nancy, any highlights? What are you working on?
Definitely, and it's what we had worked on throughout the year. We started on the Interstate Medical Licensure Compact very early on in January, and we began to draw in the local stakeholders, the local medical communities, as well as our legislators, beginning that discussion, alluding to that process that I mentioned a little bit ago. But why it was a highlight to me was it brought many elements into this legislation that was a part of my life prior to being in the Assembly. And that was, I was a pre-med student. I eventually elected to go on and be part of a family business, but then I also served on my hospital board in the community. And the compact basically allows more access to excellent care, better outcomes for those in rural districts, but also throughout the state of Wisconsin. It was a bipartisan measure. We started out with over 70 co-sponsors. It passed on the Assembly floor 95-1. And we actually signed the bill into law this last week with Governor Walker joining us in the district, and once again bringing the stakeholders together and celebrating the achievement that will help a wide scope of residents throughout Wisconsin.
That's great. Good for you. That's good stuff. Good. John?
We've had a couple of neat things. We, with a budget resolution piece, two pieces were actually included in the budget. One was a piece to help boys and girls Be Great graduate program. So underserved and underprivileged kids stay in school and graduate. So we were able to get that funding put together in the budget. I was also the lead author of the 529 ABLE account. So kids with disabilities now can have a 529 just like a non-disabled child would be. So there's a couple of neat pieces there. Working with some stuff with both of these guys, with Mike's committee on some help, and then we've got some tax pieces that are in place, but those are a little complicated. We're not going to do that in 9 months. So so I'm really excited about some of the stuff that we're doing. Good stuff. Good stuff.
Well, each one of us represents roughly 56,000 people in the state of Wisconsin in our respective districts. And I know if you feel the same way I do, that it is truly an honor to walk into the Wisconsin State Capitol every day representing your respective assembly district. And I want to thank Representative Rohrkast and Representative Vandermeer and Representative Mako for joining me here today. And we look forward to some great things, not only for the remainder of this session, but in future sessions to come. So thank you very much. And we'll see you again soon.
Thank you, Rob.
Thank you.
Thank you.